I never asked for applause. I didn't need anyone to tell me I was strong. But when your son calls you a stranger, after you've given up your whole life to raise him, that kind of betrayal doesn't just sting, it burns. Before we dive in, if this story moves you, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. And if you haven't already, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell to keep the stories coming your way. Just a heads up, we don't just share stories here, we invite you to experience them. There's a little quiz at the end, just for fun. It's our way of saying thanks for watching closely and spotting the subtle moments others might miss. My name is Linda, and I raised my son Henry all by myself after his mother died. Yes, his mother. I'm not his biological mom. But when cancer took my sister, I didn't hesitate for a second. I took in her baby, just a year old, and made him mine. Diapers, fevers, tantrums, teen drama, I handled it all. So imagine how I felt the day someone showed me a video of Henry, telling the world he grew up an orphan. We lived in a modest 2-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood in Spokane, Washington. I worked nights at the hospital, took double shifts when I had to. My back always ached, and my shoes wore out faster than I could replace them. But I made sure Henry never missed a meal, never went without a backpack, never saw me cry when the bills came in. I still remember his first science fair. He'd built this messy volcano that barely erupted. I was dead on my feet after a 12-hour shift, but I showed up, mascara smudged, shoes squeaking, clapping louder than every other parent combined. And when he won 3rd place, he ran straight into my arms and whispered, "You're the best, Auntie Linda." I corrected him gently, like always. Just mom, baby. Always mom. The teenage years hit hard. He got taller, quieter, started wearing those baggy hoodies and blasting music with words I couldn't even repeat. But he never went hungry, never sat alone on a birthday. And when college applications rolled around, I worked overtime just to cover the fees. No loans, no GoFundMe, just me. He got into NYU. I cried so hard in the car I had to pull over. It felt like everything I sacrificed. The skipped vacations, the secondhand clothes, the nights I slept upright in a plastic chair at work. It all paid off. Until last month. My friend from church sent me a video. Said, "Isn't this your Henry?" I clicked, watched, froze. He was doing an interview on some podcast, talking about overcoming adversity, about how he grew up in foster care, and how he never knew real love until college. Then he said it, "I guess I've always been an orphan. Just had to figure things out on my own." Orphan. He used that word like I was dead. Like I never stayed up sewing his Halloween costume at 3 a.m. Like I never bled for him when he broke his arm on the football field, and I raced to the ER barefoot because I couldn't find my shoes. I didn't want to believe it. Maybe it was just an act, a story to make his rise sound more dramatic. But then I saw the comments. People were calling him inspirational, a real self-made man. And there I was, watching from my little kitchen table, with his baby picture still hanging on the wall behind me. That night, I opened the cedar box where I'd kept every letter, every school report, every scribbled, "I love you, Mom," he ever wrote. I held that box like it was a piece of my heart, because honestly, it was. I haven't confronted him yet. I don't even know what I'd say. But if he ever comes back home, I hope he remembers the nights I held his feverish body against mine, praying he'd make it through till morning. I hope he remembers my cracked hands packing his lunch with the last slices of bread. And I hope one day Henry realizes he may not have had a perfect childhood, but he was never an orphan. It was around midnight when I finally got the courage to open his old bedroom door. Dust had settled thick across the bookshelf, but the walls still had the glow-in-the-dark stars we put up together when he was 10. I told him the ceiling could be his universe. No matter how dark things got, there'd always be light above him. Funny how the light fades when you stop looking up. I ran my hand across his old desk, still scratched from the time he tried to carve his initials with a butter knife. JAL. I used to joke that it stood for just a lot, because that boy had just a lot of everything: energy, opinions, appetite, and more attitude than a room full of teenagers. I sat down in his desk chair, and it creaked beneath me like it remembered him too. It had been years since Henry moved out. We used to talk every weekend, then every month, then holidays only. Now, he hadn't called in over 8 months. Part of me wanted to believe he was just busy. Life in New York must be hectic. But deep down, I knew. People make time for the things that matter. And maybe I didn't matter to Henry anymore. The next day, I didn't go to work. I called out, poured myself a second cup of coffee, and sat at the kitchen table where I'd raised that boy one packed lunch, one late-night tutoring session at a time. I opened Facebook. I hadn't used it in forever. Typed his name in the search bar, Henry Ashford. There he was, smiling, in a blazer, in what looked like a conference room. His profile picture had a quote on it: "Success has no history, just results." No history. That line hit me like a punch to the ribs. There were pictures of him at networking events, black tie galas, yacht parties. No mention of me. Not a single one. But then I saw it. A photo of him speaking at a TEDx event. Caption read, "From foster care to Forbes 30 under 30, Henry Ashford shares his path from pain to purpose." I clicked the video. My hands were shaking. He started by saying he never knew his father. That part was true. Then he said his mother died when he was a baby. Also true. Then he said he bounced between foster homes, that no one ever really wanted him, that he used to cry himself to sleep, hoping someone, anyone, would choose him. And right there, in front of an applauding audience, he said, "I've been alone for most of my life." I felt like the air left my lungs, like I was watching a stranger wear my son's face. I didn't remember raising a liar, but maybe I had raised an actor. That night, I pulled out the shoebox from the hall closet. Inside were cards, birthday cards, Mother's Day cards, a thank you he scribbled in crayon when he was 6. I read every single one, clung to every word like it might bring him back. And then, tucked in the bottom, I found something I hadn't seen in years. A folded letter, sealed with masking tape. No stamp, no return address. I opened it. It was written in my sister's handwriting. "Linda, if you're reading this, I didn't make it. Please raise my baby the way I know only you can. Tell him everything, but tell him gently. About his dad, about the adoption, about the rest." The rest? I turned the letter over. Nothing. I hadn't told Henry everything. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know everything. His mom was private. She kept things buried. And I never pushed because I thought I had time. Now I realized maybe I hadn't given Henry the full truth. Maybe, to him, that silence felt like a lie. So I did what I hadn't done in years. I called my cousin Renee. She and my sister had been tight back in the day. Renee picked up on the second ring. "Linda? Yeah. I need to ask you something. About Henry. About his dad." She went quiet. "Are you sure you want to go there?" "I think I have to." We met the next afternoon at a small diner off Highway 2. She looked older than I remembered, lines deeper, hair silver, but those eyes, still sharp as ever. She ordered coffee, black, no sugar. Then she said, "Your sister didn't just leave things unsaid, Linda. She hid them." My heart sank. Henry's father, he wasn't just some guy who disappeared. He was dangerous. I blinked. "What do you mean?" "She got involved with a man named Curtis Monroe, fast talker, charmer, but behind the scenes he was running scams, laundering money, and worse." I felt the blood drain from my face. She found out. She tried to leave. That's when she came to you. Said she was sick. That wasn't the whole reason, Linda. She was scared. For her and for Henry. I stared at my coffee, hands trembling. Why didn't she tell me? Because she thought you'd try to fix it, and that would have gotten you both killed. When I got home that night, I sat on the couch and stared at the wall. I thought I'd raised Henry with everything. But what if I raised him in a house built on secrets? I picked up my phone, typed a message. Henry, I saw your TEDx talk. We need to talk. There's something I never told you. I stared at it for 20 minutes, then deleted it. He wouldn't respond. Not to that. So I did the only thing I could think of. I mailed him the letter from his mom. No return address, no note, just her handwriting, her words. And then I waited. A week passed, then 2. Nothing. Then, one night, I came home and found a manila envelope taped to my door. My heart leapt. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a photograph. It was Henry, 6 or 7 years old, sitting on my lap, covered in finger paint, grinning wide. On the back, in his handwriting, were 4 words. I didn't forget. J. That's it. No letter, no call, just a photo. But that one photo, it brought every tear to the surface. I clutched it to my chest and whispered into the silence. Then why did you pretend I didn't exist? I went to bed that night with 1,000 questions. But sometime around 3 a.m., I woke to a sound outside. A car, engine running. Then, footsteps. I peeked through the blinds. It was Henry, standing by the curb. Just standing. Like he didn't know if he should come in or walk away. And before I could move, before I could even breathe, he turned and walked back into the night. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. Every car that passed, I wondered if it was him turning back. Every shadow on the wall made my heart skip. But the door stayed closed, and my world stayed silent. I sat at the edge of my bed as the sky turned from black to that cold blue-gray that creeps over everything before sunrise. And I just kept thinking, he was here. He came all this way. He stood right outside, but he still couldn't come home. What was keeping him out there? What was so heavy in his heart that he'd drive here in the middle of the night, but couldn't knock? Maybe he didn't know what he'd find on the other side of the door. Or maybe he was afraid he wouldn't be welcome. And that broke me in a way nothing else had. I decided to leave a light on. Not just a porch light, but his bedroom light. The same one with the soft yellow glow that made him feel safe as a child. The one I'd leave on when he had nightmares about shadows in the closet. Every night, I'd go in and click it on. And every morning, I'd turn it off. It was small, but it felt like something. Like saying, you're still welcome here. That next weekend, I drove out to an old thrift store on the edge of town. Not because I needed anything, but because I needed distraction. As I browsed through a bin of used books, something caught my eye. It was a journal, leather-bound, worn, with the initials J.A. scratched into the corner. I froze, opened the cover. Blank. Flipped to the middle. Still blank. Then I turned to the back page. One single entry. If I ever disappear, I hope someone finds this. If they do, please tell her I tried, and I really did. No signature. No date. But my hands trembled anyway. That night, I sat on the porch with the journal in my lap, flipping through the empty pages, wondering if it was a coincidence or a sign. Maybe it wasn't Henry's, but it felt like something he'd write. I hadn't thought about it before. But what if this wasn't just about ego or reinvention? What if he wasn't rejecting me out of pride, but because of shame? What if something happened to Henry that I never saw? I began to retrace memories, looking for cracks I had missed. That summer after sophomore year, he got quieter, started locking his door more. I thought it was just teen stuff, hormones, mood swings. But what if it wasn't? I started making calls, teachers, old neighbors, anyone who might remember something I didn't. Mrs. Carpenter, his high school English teacher, was the first to pick up. "I always thought Henry was brilliant," she said. "Had a mind for words, but he stopped writing one year, used to turn in poems, then just stopped." "Which year?" I asked. "Junior year, around November. He got in a fight, didn't he? Broke a locker, never said why." That part I remembered. I got the call at work. He told me some kid made fun of his shoes. I believed him. But what if that was just the excuse? 2 days later, I got an anonymous envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single USB stick. No note, no explanation. My fingers hovered over the laptop. I didn't know if I wanted to open it, but I did. There was only one file, a video clip, grainy. Looks like it was recorded with an old phone. It was Henry, maybe 17, sitting in a dim room, hood up, eyes red, like he'd been crying. He was speaking into the camera. "If anything ever happens to me, I want the truth to come out. They said I had to keep quiet, that it would protect the family. But it's been eating me alive. He said he'd come back, that he'd find me. And if he does, I don't know what I'll do." The screen went black. I stared at the monitor, mouth open, breath stuck in my throat. Who was he? Suddenly, the pieces started to rearrange in my mind. My sister's mysterious past, her fear, her dying wish for me to tell him everything. Henry's silence, his reinvention, his talk of figuring things out alone. Had he been threatened? Had someone from that past resurfaced? Curtis Monroe. I thought the name was buried with my sister. But what if it wasn't? I started searching. Public records, obituaries, inmate databases. And there it was. Curtis Monroe, released 2 years ago. Last known address, Brooklyn, New York. Same city where Henry now lived. That night, I couldn't eat, couldn't breathe. I lay in bed, listening to every creak in the house, as if one of them might whisper an answer. I thought about calling him, about begging him to tell me the truth. But I didn't want to drive him away further, so I wrote him a letter. "Henry, I know more than you think. You don't have to protect me. You don't have to carry it alone anymore. Please, let me in. Love, Mom. I didn't send it. Not yet. Then, a week later, he showed up again. Middle of the night. Same car, same hesitation. This time, I didn't stay frozen. I opened the door. He stood on the porch, hands in his jacket, eyes tired. "Hey," he said softly. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Hey." Long silence. "I'm sorry," he said. "About the video. About everything." I nodded. "You don't owe me a perfect story, Henry, but I do deserve the truth." He looked away, then back. "You might not want it. I'm your mother, I do." And then, he took a deep breath. "There's something I never told you. I met him, Curtis. He found me." My knees nearly gave out. He told me everything about Mom, about what she did, about what he did. He said if I spoke out, if I told anyone, you'd be next. Tears welled in my eyes. So I erased you, in my story. Not because I wanted to, but because I thought it might save you. I stepped forward, put my hand on his cheek. He leaned into it like a little boy. "But you didn't have to protect me," I whispered. He let out a breath that sounded like it had been trapped for years. "I know, now I know." Then I asked, "Is he still in your life?" Henry hesitated, then nodded. And that was when I saw it. a faint bruise along his collarbone, barely peeking out from his shirt. My stomach turned. "You're not safe, are you?" He didn't answer. And I knew. The story wasn't just about healing a broken relationship. It was about surviving something far bigger, something that hadn't let go of him yet. He looked down, jaw tight, breathing shallow. Then he reached up, slowly, and tugged the collar of his shirt down just a little more. That's when I saw the edge of another bruise, this one darker, older. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't from a fall. It was the kind of mark that said someone still had a hold on him. I wanted to scream, to grab the keys, to drive to wherever this man was, and make sure he never touched my son again. But I stayed still. Because this wasn't about me. This was about Henry, finally trusting me enough to show me. "How long has this been going on?" I whispered. "Since the gala last fall," he said, barely above a breath. "He showed up outside my apartment in Brooklyn, said he knew I was talking to a journalist, said he'd ruin you if I opened my mouth." He looked up at me then, eyes glassy, like a little boy who hadn't slept in months. I believed him, because everything he said about Mom turned out to be true. I motioned for him to come inside. He hesitated, then stepped over the threshold into the house he hadn't entered in nearly 4 years. He stood in the foyer for a long moment, eyes scanning the pictures on the wall. "You kept all these up?" he asked, voice almost surprised. "Why wouldn't I?" He didn't answer that. I led him to the kitchen, poured him some tea even though I wasn't sure he'd drink it. He held the mug, but never brought it to his lips. "I should have told you sooner," he said. "You should have," I agreed, "but I also should have asked more questions." He looked up at that, like the idea shocked him, that I'd own some piece of the silence too. "Why didn't you?" he asked. I thought for a second. Because I thought love meant not digging. I thought if you needed to talk, you would. And maybe I was afraid of what I'd find. He sat back in the chair, eyes heavy, shoulders curled inward like someone who'd been carrying a mountain for too long. "I thought cutting you out would keep you safe," he said again. But all it did was make me feel more alone. I reached across the table, placed my hand over his. He flinched, just slightly, but didn't pull away. "Curtis, he hasn't just been threatening me," he said after a pause. "He's been using me." "Using you how?" Henry swallowed hard. "He's laundering money again. Through nonprofits, ones that I speak at, ones that donate to my name. He says it's clean, but I know it's not. He says I'm his golden boy, that the press I get keeps people from asking questions." My breath caught. "And you just let him?" He slammed the mug down, tea sloshing over the side. "No, I didn't let anything. But you don't understand. He has files, Mom. Videos, pictures, stuff from when I was 17. Stuff I didn't even know he had." I stared at him, pulse roaring in my ears. "What kind of stuff?" His eyes dropped again. "I don't want to say, not yet." A silence fell between us. Not cold, but dense, like a hallway with all the lights off. I reached into the drawer, pulled out the letter from his mom, the one she wrote before she died, the one I'd kept sealed for so long, afraid of what it might say. "I was going to mail this to you," I said, "but maybe it's better you read it here." He took it, hands trembling, opened it slowly, read it silently, lips moving without sound. By the time he finished, there were tears falling freely down his face. He didn't try to hide them. "She knew," he whispered. "She knew what he was." I nodded. "And she knew you'd survive." He sat there a long time, clutching the letter like it was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. "She says I'm not broken," he said, "that I'm just bruised, but bruises heal." I wanted so badly to believe that. But the look in his eyes told me he wasn't healing yet. He was still bleeding, just on the inside. "Henry," I said carefully, "you don't have to go back to that apartment. You can stay here, just until we figure this out." He shook his head. "I can't. If I disappear, he'll know something's up. He'll come here." I felt a chill run up my spine. "What if we go to the police?" He gave a small, sad laugh. "And tell them what? That a felon with no digital footprint is blackmailing me using evidence from my teen years? That I've been laundering money without realizing it? You think they won't bury me first?" I hated that he was right. Because he was right. That night, I gave him his old room. He didn't sleep. I could hear him pacing through the floorboards all night. Around 4 a.m., I heard the bathroom faucet turn on, then off, then nothing. I got up to check. His door was open, his bed still made. I ran to the porch, empty, but taped to the door this time was a sticky note. 4 words. "Don't follow, not yet." I didn't know where he'd gone. His phone was off, his social media, silent. But a few days later, I got a call, blocked number. I hesitated, then picked up. "Linda?" the voice rasped. My blood ran cold. I hadn't heard that voice in over 2 decades, didn't even know it still existed. "Curtis?" I whispered. He chuckled. "You really raised him well. He's a sharp one, that kid, but soft, too soft." I didn't speak. He continued, "Don't get involved. You're not part of this. Not unless you want to be." My hands curled into fists. "What do you want from him?" "I already got what I need," he said. "But he's playing hero now. That's dangerous." He paused. "Tell him to back off, or someone else is going to pay the price." Then he hung up. I stood there, phone to my ear, heart racing. And that's when I realized this wasn't over, not by a long shot. And maybe Henry wasn't the only one in danger anymore. Sometimes the deepest wounds are the ones we never see. Not bruises on skin, but silence between words. Not violence with fists, but the erasure of love from memory. I thought I raised Henry to be strong, but maybe I also raised him to carry pain alone. And now he's out there, facing ghosts I never knew existed. Not just for himself, but to protect the one person he tried so hard to forget. Me. Maybe that's what love really is. Not perfection, not gratitude, but the courage to return, even when you think it's too late. So now I wait. Light still on, door still open. Because even if he never calls me mom again, he'll always be my son. If this story moved you, tap like, hit subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next chapter. Because here on Fiction Echoes, we don't just tell stories. We hold up a mirror to the lives we've all quietly lived. Until next time, take care of your truth. And never assume silence means forgetting. Quiz. How many times was Linda mentioned in the story? Drop your answer below. Like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss a story like this.